You know a genre we've watched come a long way since their old 2D origins? Beat 'em ups. We've seen Titans trip and the unexpected rise. The fuck is that smell? It's a breath of fresh air washing over the past few years of stagnation. So how's Raiden's first foray into ripping and tearing? Despite a few familiar faces, there's no treading over old ground here. In fact, that was completely intentional when Koji Pro threw their arms up in frustration when they couldn't nail the gameplay down. They found that they lacked the talent to make a solid stealth beat-em-up hybrid, so they turned to Platinum Games for some aid. Now the question remains, were they successful?
That's my boy!
Well, this is a Metal Gear game, right? And it is canon, albeit still a spin-off. So, should we talk about the story? Yeah, sure, why not? But you know, I'd say sure, why not is a good way to approach the story as a whole.
How about full of shit? Is that a meme?
Stealing vagabond children brains to brainwash for perfect soldiers? Sure, why not? Hearing the voices of cyborgs as they mentally retreat in terror? Sure, why not? Slicing through a Metal Gear using its own arm? Sure, why not? Supersonic speeds achieved through child labor? Sure, why not? Nanomachines? Sure, why not? To be perfectly honest, there was nothing more ludicrous in this game than MGS4. In fact, MGR almost makes MGS4 look tame in comparison. But as ludicrous and ham-fisted as the story is delivered, I can't say that I hate it. Mixed in with the ham-fisted messages are the cheesiest lines of dialogue, and you know what? I love cheese and ham. I found the story to be delicious, despite how silly it was. In fact, there was a moment that made some pretty dark implications.
His arm is gone! His arm is gone!
But there was also a moment that made me cringe.
Right. Vending machines full of blood.
But that's not to say that most of the time I wasn't awestruck by the directing of the action scenes. They were well choreographed and easily followed, not to mention the humor got me at times. One of my personal favorite characteristics attributed to Raiden throughout the game was his complete disregard for philosophy. The MGS series was rife with it, and that's what made it beautiful, but this is not MGS. This is MGR. And with that, Raiden doesn't care to hear about what about war makes your heart sing. He just wants to chop you up into tiny little cogs and shards.
But here I am, surrounded by death, arguing philosophy with terrorists.
Oh yeah, and at some point, Raiden gets a little emo. Then a bunch of people complained about this, as if the man had no issues to cry about. You know, the child soldier, who was forced to rip into people, and eat gunpowder. No reasons to have issues whatsoever. Nope, none. But beyond the story that's told you up front, it's really the codec calls that shine. You learn the ultimate fate of past characters, the background of the new cast, and even get interesting facts about the world itself, including Raiden's lack of regenerating health. Hey, do you know what the best part of these codec calls are? I mean, besides the fact that you can fast forward through them?
What? Who?
The voice acting.
You can't think that way, Courtney. Not in this business. You did everything you could. Put it behind you and move on.
Nah, but really, Quentin Flynn sounds as soaked as he ever has. I'm pretty sure he shows up to recording sessions drunk, and I love him for it. Tasteful jokes about alcoholism aside, the voice acting is pretty standard fare here. But characters such as Sundowner, Mistral, Kevin, Jetstream Sam, and yes, even Raiden, are really brought to life by their respective actors. Except for George. Fuck this guy. Don't like him. I don't like him. I mean, really, if you're going to go with the TMNT reference, out of all the abundance of quotes, why would you go with Vanilla Ice? On that note, even the main themes of the game have vocals, and they're damn good.
Yes! Waving wide open!
I found that most people are split as to whether they love MGR soundtrack or not. I'm in the camp that adores it. I was honestly impressed with the vocal tracks. Games like Final Fantasy X, X-2, Final Fantasy VIII, they made me hate the idea of vocal tracks, but MGR absolutely blew me away. Hell, even the orchestral tracks are no slouch themselves.
That's it? Pretty simple thinking for such a mighty intellect.
I may analyze orders, but I may not disobey them.
All around, the music does a great job of putting you on the edge of your seat, really sinking your heart into the game. To be honest, the sound design all around was solid, one of the more flawless aspects of MGR. Most notably the sound of combat, how your weapon would clash with your prey. Each and every attack feels as if it's accentuated by the impact of the sound, giving it a feeling of heft and haptic feedback. I felt like each attack or parry carried true weight. You know what? To hell with it. Let's get to what this game is really all about. The combat. And I cannot punctuate hard enough how combat-centric MGR truly is. First off, the responsiveness of the character on screen is buttery smooth and the combat is fast and frantic. Thankfully, the game won't bog you down with too many tutorials, leaving most of that to the VR missions. That's not to say, however, that you won't find a few important aspects of the combat flying right over your head. Because you will. That's probably my main gripe with the game, so let me get that out of the way now. As packed with excellent mechanics as this game is, they leave a few of the more esoteric ones hidden away. But for starters, one mechanic that of which shouldn't be esoteric, many don't even know exists, or even know how to execute. The dodge function. Yeah, it's pretty vital to beating the game. After you purchase the tragically named defensive offensive, what you have to do to dodge is hold the direction that you want to go, then press light attack and jump together. Clunky, yes, at first, but when you get used to it, it flows with ease. As a quick tangent, I should say that I feel that only Raiden's dodge should have been done this way. The reason for this is because Raiden plays as a Yax, every move he makes is on the offensive. But when you play as Blade Wolf or Jetstream Sam, I felt that it should have just been a direction plus jump strictly while locked on. They play much differently than Raiden and care far more for their defensive position character-wise. So in my eyes, it just makes sense that we wouldn't need to press down the light attack button as well. Yes, if you haven't guessed by now, Raiden's dodge does do damage to the target when it connects. The next esoteric gameplay mechanic is called Dodge Offset. This little gem is a bit that's migrated from Bayonetta. Each of the 3 characters that you can play as has access to this mechanic immediately. This simple skill is the ability to dodge in the middle of a combo, then continue it afterwards and finish it off. It's very helpful in terms of damage output, survivability, and looking good. If the genre walks away from Bayonetta and MGR with at least one thing, I hope it's Dodge Offset. The ability to save the position of your combo input and evade attacks at the same time is genius. The third esoteric mechanic has been dubbed Blade Canceling. By pressing down the Blade Mode button in the middle of an animation, you can effectively cancel it and return to your neutral stance. This is useful for canceling out of an undesired combo, or more commonly to cancel immobilizing animations at the end of certain combo strings. The benefit of this being that gameplay is sped up, and you regaining the ability to move. Certain moves, however, cannot be cancelled out of. For instance, Quick Draw or Stormbringer. An intentional design choice, as these are overpowered skills, and they should be treated as such. On this note, it should also be mentioned that you can parry in mid-animation for most skills, including aerial skills. Again, Stormbringer and the like cannot be cancelled by any such means. Speaking of Blade Mode, here's the 4th unmentioned mechanic. You can actually move while you have it activated. That's right. Just click in the left analog stick and walk your ass around. This is mainly to make up for those that are just out of your reach. Now the 5th and final esoteric mechanic, quick sub-item usage. Yeah, that's a thing. Hate that awful sub-weapon aiming system? Fuck it. Just lock on and tap the sub-weapon fire button. There go your rockets. With all these quasi-hidden mechanics out of the way, we can now talk about each of the main functions of combat. The swordplay in MGR is fast, electric, and unrelenting. The goal, as mentioned previously, was for each character to play as how their personality dictates. Raiden's suicidal aggression is in full swing here. Not only does his dodging implement damaging a foe, but every parry is executed by throwing your force into the target. Parrying, honestly, is extremely easy, and feels like an intricate part of expressing Raiden's fighting style. The game will simply tell you to press the stick in the direction of an oncoming attack while hitting the light attack button. What it means to say is to fap the fuck out of the stick in that direction and land one perfect parry after another. Any attack telegraphed with a red glow can be parried. If it's telegraphed with a yellow glow, it must be dodged. No exceptions. You will get grappled and you may get dunked. Blade Wolf and Sam can parry as well, however it should be mentioned that Blade Wolf's dodge is rather stunted. Yet Sam's dodge roll was quick and nimble. You'll notice a pattern of how each character brings a taste of variety to the game. Engaging in combat and executing combos is also very satisfying, but because of the way parrying was implemented to give you this full 360-degree defensive freedom, there aren't many directional input commands, even when you're locked onto the target. Most combos are performed via pressing a string of strong and heavy strikes or giving a pause between command inputs. However, you still have forward heavy, back forward light, back forward heavy, and rotating the stick 360 degrees followed by a heavy strike. Both Blade Wolf and Sam have less combos than Raiden, of course, but they play far different as well. Sam feels like a more agile Raiden, but also more vulnerable. Blade Wolf feels sloppy, since he's meant for stealth. Speaking of swordplay, it'd be wise to cover the major selling point of MGR as dictated by every major media source. Blade Mode! Is Blade Mode as intuitive or even as good as it was sold to us? I have to say yes. Yes, it is. Although, it may not handle as you envision when watching a demonstration. You may try to hack wildly with the right analog stick, finding your results to be unsatisfactory. This is because hacking in Blade Mode asks a bit more concentration on your end. In order to complete a slash, all you have to do is tilt the stick to the edge of the angle that you want to cut through, then release the stick back to neutral for the attack to register. If you flick the stick back and forth all around, you'll find Raiden to look rather lame. MGR has a tendency to provoke panic in some that I know who've played it. You really don't have to be so spastic. Regardless, Blade Mode gives you plenty of interesting opportunities to absolutely vivisect, eviscerate, and disembowel those who stand in your way. If you weaken a foe enough, entering Blade Mode gives you the chance to steal their electrolytes. If you manage to weaken multiple, you'll be granted the chance to open up each weakened opponent, chaining your harvest of their guts. Now, when it comes to Sam and Wolfie's Blade Mode, they actually feel distinct from Raiden's. Sam's feels more efficient and accurate, whereas Blade Wolf's feels sluggish, taking into account the whip that lashes his chainsaw and the chainsaw actually, well, sawing through people. But no matter who you're playing as or who you're up against, every opponent is susceptible to the chops of Blade Mode. Yes, even the bosses. And just like any normal enemy, you must be prompted to use such a powerful tool. Oh, and did I mention how impressed I was by the enemy variety in MGR? Airborne or grounded, my first playthrough felt fresh from start to finish. Each enemy will throw something new at you, requiring you to handle them in a specific fashion. For instance, cursing at soldiers with rocket launchers. It helps you relieve that built-up tension.
Throwing fucking rockets at the peelers, I'll bring you home to your diary, dick!
One of my more cathartic moments of my multiple playthroughs was turning each and every gecko into my bitch. This felt like revenge after MGS4. Just saying. Even better is the fact that Very Hard and Revengeance Mode will remix enemy placements. Sadly, neither mode unlocks additional boss fights. That would have been neat. And yes, whatever progress you made from previous playthroughs carries over to your next. Brownie points for what is essentially a New Game Plus mode.
Here is how it's done.
Now as for the bosses themselves, these assholes definitely satiated my thirst for dramatic showdowns. It helps that they fought as if a living mattered to them. If I drew distance between myself and Monsoon, he would take advantage of this. If I closed the gap between myself and Ray, it would take advantage of this.
Ha! Wide open!
If I was behind Sundowner, he would take advantage of this. What I'm getting at is that I was thoroughly impressed with how each boss was spatially aware. It felt as if I was fending off someone who attempted to occupy and dominate the space before me. Even Blade Wolf's final boss encounter weaves the stealth mechanic into it, in a surprisingly non-invasive fashion. But as for Armstrong, he may very well be my all-time favorite final boss fight. For multiple reasons, of course, not the least of which being that each of his multiple phases demands that you retain every skill you were taught throughout the game. Dodging, parrying, swift and precise control in Blade Mode, environmental awareness. Armstrong will settle for no less than the absolute best out of you. On top of this, the final boss music, it has to be this way, had me on the edge of my seat. I hadn't been this pumped to kick someone's ass due to musical inspiration since the final boss fight of Lost Odyssey. The most impressive thing about the music overall in MGR, how it actually made me not hate QTEs. Mind you, I hate QTEs. Hate them. I don't even want to see them in MGR. But I honestly found myself having fun with them. Have you noticed yet how I haven't mentioned stealth during all this praise? Yeah, that's because it's not praiseworthy. In fact, its presence is almost offensive. Offensive for being here? Nah. Offensive for being poorly implemented? Surprisingly no, although it is, poorly implemented. It's offensive because this one isolated action takes up an entire face button for itself. Yeah, that's right. The stealth kill button shares itself with only one other action. Opening doors. It's just such a complete waste. I'd sooner rather see it be a connect command than take up a face button. Stealth does serve two legit purposes though. For one, it's an easy way to get your hands on some electrolytes. Secondly, the stealth kill animations are gorgeous. They're pure eye candy. Oh yeah, and then there's Ripper Mode. Activating this follows that trend of pushing in both analog sticks, and you may be well aware that doesn't jive too well with me. Ripper Mode in general just felt mostly useless. The only reason I ever used it was just to capture footage for it. Slicing through people with it is neat, but the novelty of that fades fast. Sam's taunt acts somewhat like Ripper Mode, although it's really just his compensation for his lack of stealth skills. Again, keeping Sam true to his character. And with that, I should touch upon the sub-weapon system in MGR. Not a fan. Accessing it slows down your gameplay to a halt, and using it is dry and unsatisfactory. That's not to say it isn't useful though. Rockets are overpowered, and in general an absolute necessity to deal with hunters. Grenades offer fantastic crowd control, and barrels are, well, they're, barrels of fun. That being said, using any of these items just feels clunky. Also, it feels wasteful of the button space on the controller. I would have much preferred to use it to switch out your unique weapons. As you may have guessed it by that statement, not only do you acquire unique weapons in MGR, but they're also slow to switch out. Thankfully, only one of the three is fun, and even then has questionable merit. The one unique weapon I thoroughly enjoyed was Mistral's L'étranger, from here on out referred to as the polearm. The furious and deadly beatings this thing dishes out are a blast. The problem is, aside from having to access an inventory screen to even equip the damn thing, is that its moveset is limited by only being usable with the heavy attack button. It will force you to use it in conjunction with your main sword, making both weapons feel somewhat neutered. This feels suffocating on the front of combat creativity, but nevertheless, the polearm is a blast to use, and I hope weapons like this get slotted into the main category section for the next release. They deserve a bigger spotlight for ripping everything to shreds. However, for the last two unique weapons, I can't say anything I like about them at all, honestly. Monsoon Side Dystopia merely serves as a gap closer with a stun if it's fully charged. It has no other moves. A gap closer that can be just as easily accomplished by dashing or ninja running. Color me unimpressed. Sundowner's Bloodlust Shears, however, are quite an odd device. Despite being painfully slow to strike with, doing so significantly boosts your defense and does massive damage. It can even make you invulnerable to being knocked down on easier difficulties. In fact, you can actually dish out so much damage with them that you can skip entire boss phases. My main problem with them? That whole painfully slow part. They're cumbersome as intended by design, but they just don't suit my playstyle. I will give them credit, however, for offering such a unique way to play the game, despite it not really resonating with me. Above all else, though, I feel that the implementation of unique weapons was done unsatisfyingly. I would have much preferred a set of main weapons to switch out, each with a unique feel and moveset. You can acquire more main weapons, however, they all share the exact same combo list, since they're just variations on your high-frequency blade. They do vary in playstyle, to their credit. For instance, the HF Machete has a super high attack speed, but expectedly low damage output. Also a much shorter reach than, say, the HF Murasama. Some of the other main weapons were interesting to play with as well. The HF Wooden Sword can allow you to play an entirely non-lethal game. When you defeat an enemy, they will cloak rather than die. But for some reason, hidden men in boxes will die regardless. Also, you can't cut shit with them. It's actually kind of funny. The Foxblade, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. When fully upgraded, it acts as if you're always in blade mode, much like Ripper Mode, and everything you slash at will fall to pieces. Personally, I prefer the HF Murasama, but a word to the wise! When it's fully upgraded, it's entirely overpowered. I managed to kill Blade Wolf on Revengeance Mode without him ever shifting into another phase to summon help. Another option for those on PC is to download a mod dubbed MGR Fix. I'll place the instructions on how to snag this mod in the description below. This mod is supposed to do two things. For one, it gives you Blade Wolf's HF Saw to use as a weapon, completely replacing the Foxblade. Does it come with any extra benefits? Nope. It just looks fucking awesome. Also looks very silly when sheathed. What are you doing, Chainsaw? That's not how you're supposed to sheath yourself. Secondly, the mod will also force full screen resolution support on any monitor. Sadly, this does not help increase the internal resolution of the game, which is criminally small at cap. At least, not at the time of writing this review. But you know what? The fact that there's even a mod to begin with is a silver lining. I think it would be sweet if one day we could get skins for Raiden.
Dude, like you fucking know who.
I guess at this point I should start talking about the aesthetics, huh? Yeah, sure. Why not? It's not like I'm doing anything better right now. Visually, MGR crosses a check from both the columns of beauty and Drek. On the beauty side, the character models are gorgeous and well animated, and holy shit, does everyone have incredible hips. Man, woman, robot, they all have hips that scream to bear some babies. The animations are phenomenal as well, and every action comes to life with the talented animation team at Platinum Games. Every character handles their attacks and defenses with such confidence and fluidity. I mean, Ray looks like he's really gonna stomp my ass to pieces. And I look fucking awesome parrying his stomp. And as for Monsoon, no. Don't even get me started. The brother can juke with a juke. Actually, this makes me need to bring up a point that I found to be interesting. MGR suffers from something I never expected to honestly say I enjoyed, but there are mid-boss fight cutscenes. Don't get all crazy and alarmed, they're very, very brief. But they are there. Now, why is it that I can enjoy these brief cutscenes in MGR, and yet feel as if the ones in DMC were shoved down my throat? Well, for one simple reason, the nature of the gameplay. MGR's combat was so frenetic that when a cutscene popped up, I actually sighed in relief to give my fingers a break, as opposed to DMC, which played dreadfully slow to begin with and had cutscenes lasting a full minute in the middle of battle.
Pain in the asshole.
Now, to get back on topic, I did mention that there was a Drek side to the visuals. Have you noticed a reoccurring theme here? Possibly a lot of grays and browns. Alright. To be fair, MGS has historically always had a drab color palette, and Platinum Games did take the chance to insert vibrant colors into the game when it seemed to fit well enough. That really didn't help though in making the level design feel any better. Aside from it being boring most of the time, even at its best the color palette just left me feeling a little down. Stop! Wait, that's not entirely true. There's one segment of one level, the World Marshal Zen Garden. Just look at this place. Absolutely beautiful. Oh, and the brain room looked quite nice too. The point is, most of the stages have a drab look to them. But on top of that, most of the stages have a kind of boring design. Jet Set Radio taught us that you can make city levels interesting.
Yeah, pretty much.
And these mostly uninspired drab levels also accentuate one more thing: the lacking texture quality. To be fair, most of the time the game runs far too fast for you to notice. But then you get these nice graceful moments to slow down time and really reflect on just how fucking cool Raiden is. Then you can't help but notice to see something like this. Ugh. In the end though, the lackluster half of the visuals don't even matter. That shit gets drowned out by the absurd amount of fun, variety, and hips this game has to offer.
Now you're just being nasty.
But hey, are you getting tired of that default flavor of Raiden hips? Then boy, do I have some good news for you. There's a shit ton of outfits to unlock. Just as a sample, you can pick from burrito, donut, all the way to a nostalgic rigor mortis flavor. Wait, that's not the end of the extra content rabbit hole in MGR.
Lucky devil.
You've got men in boxes to uncover, models to find, arms to collect, VR missions hidden about, a codec and cinematic theater, 2 higher difficulty settings, data storage units, and innocents to save.
Out of the operation zone.
Most of these in one way or another will net you extra weapons, outfits, concept art, and super-powered wigs that grant you infinite resources. Mind you, the only unlocks for Sam and Blade Wolf's DLC are just higher difficulty settings. Not that I mind that so much with Sam. I thoroughly enjoyed double jumping, air dashing, and taunting as the Brazilian Wind.